Do y'all want to see how I took my client from this to this to this? Okay, well, stay tuned because I'm about to break down my favorite foundation that I use for covering alopecia for my clients that are getting crochet. So off camera, we already shampooed, deep conditioned with fresh aloe vera gel, and steamed her hair for about 15 minutes to completely moisturize it before we begin this style. What you see me doing here is using a butter to seal the leave-in cream conditioner that we applied off camera and the moisture that was added from the steam treatment and the aloe. So I'm using a butter as the third step in the LCO method, which stands for liquid, cream, and oil, in that order. And I'm using that to seal the moisture in her hair. And this generally just gives her hair a longer amount of time to utilize the moisture that's present by creating a barrier which prevents or traps the moisture from leaving her strands. You'll see that I'm working in 4 quadrants, and this is because her hair is naturally textured and I want to minimize breakage, tension, or discomfort. Today I'm using the yellow Shine Jam. This is my favorite for braids because it doesn't leave a lot of residue and it gives a soft hold, but just enough to hold everything in place. Y'all, this is the only amount I'm using. I do not use glue gobs of it. And this is my favorite parting tool. It's really an edge control brush, but I like that it has the brush edge as well. On the other side is like the hard comb edge and the point at the bottom, which is what I use to part. Now, the way that I get it sharp enough that I can get straight parts is that I use a nail file to file it to a point, but not too sharp, Stabiana, because you don't want to have no issues with your clients bleeding in the scalp. What I'm doing here is examining her delicate area so that I can ascertain which section would be the strongest to put her part. So since we're doing crochet braids, she's not going to have any leave out. So I don't have to worry about, her straightening it or trying to set it to achieve the same pattern as the hair, because she's not going to have any hair left out. But what I do need to do is pick a part along her hairline that is least affected by her alopecia. One thing that I do want to say before everybody gets all their panties in a bunch is that her alopecia is not a result of tight braids. She came to me with this hair issue and she was looking for a solution, and I was able to provide her one. I'm not a tight braider, so this is the only reason why I was okay with doing these crochet installs for her, because she does have certain areas along the front of her hair, like the one that you see right now, where her density is a lot fuller and I feel more comfortable placing her part there. So she obviously won't get versatile parts, but she will get one part where her hair is the strongest. And at any point that I see that part of her hair starting to thin, we have to switch to another side. And that hasn't happened yet. So she is able to wear parts on both sides, but we're doing the right side today because her last install was on the left. Random, but I found these jumbo 2-prong clips the last time I visited the hair store. This is what the regular size 2-prong clip looks like, and this was the large one. So y'all, I had to get it and I had to experiment with it. And I actually do like it because it provides like a good amount of hold, but it's not too tight. So it worked great for what I was doing today. I have already sectioned the first braid off, and the first braid is pretty much going to go straight back, but at the tail end of it, it will curve left toward the middle of her crown. And I am reinforcing this braid with braid hair because, number one, I want the size and the width of the braid to be larger, therefore closer to the parts, which will make a thinner crochet part for her installation. And so this is my normal braid speed. I'm showing you in this speed because I want you to see that I'm really not a tight braider. She's not in any kind of discomfort and her hair is not pulling. You'll be able to see once I'm finished that some of the strands aren't even really completely pulled taut, but the braid is still firm for what I need it to be firm for. So just make sure you're being gentle on this part because we still do have to fit a crochet hook under that braid. This is one of my favorite brands of hair to use when I do braid downs because I love the texture. So this is Model Aloha Twist, but a similar brand or an equivalent would be Equals Cuban Twist, because look at the texture. This is the texture that most closely mimics our kinky textured hair, and it's going to give the most hold and the most grip to give you the most firm and sturdy braid pattern. Using the tail of my favorite parting tool, I'm making her sections, I would say about anywhere between a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch wide. Anything wider than that is probably going to leave a little bit too much excess feed hair on each side of the braid, and that's what contributes to making crochet parts look unnatural or unusually wide, like y'all like to call it Moses part in the Red Sea. But I also want you to pay attention to the fact that I'm braiding each one of these braids for her part. I'm braiding them closer to the side of that section where her part will be, because I want her part to be as thin as possible. That will make her hairstyle last as long as possible. From this point, every braid that I make is going to be slightly longer than the braid before it. And that is so that the tail of that braid can wrap around the previous braid and then feed into the base of the next braid. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but just keep on watching and you'll get to see exactly what I'm talking about. So now I'm on to her third braid, and I flip-flop the sides. Since I started on the right side, her second braid was on the left side. Now I'm on the third braid, which would be back at the right side. And again, I'm braiding from the front, and I'm curving that braid back around toward the crown. Now what I'm doing is grabbing the tail of the last braid from the opposite side, and I'm feeding that into the current braid that I'm doing. And what this does is it hides the tail of the braid. It decreases bulk because you don't have the tails of multiple braids sticking out under the foundation. And it also adds volume to the base of the braid that I'm doing. So instead of just being able to crochet on the one braid that I'm braiding, I'm able to crochet it over the tail of the previous braid as well. So it almost doubles the width of the braid, which, like I explained earlier, helps to make the parts a lot thinner and it looks more natural. What you see me parting now is her fourth braid. So again, we're back on the left side. And since we're going back to the left side, I need the bottom of that braid to stop right there on the same curve as the previous braid from the opposite side. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second once I start to braid. Now we're getting into her delicate area, so I'm braiding as gently as possible. So I'm gonna go straight back, and what I'm gonna do is take the tail of the braid, of the last braid that I did, from the opposite side. So this is the last braid I had done on the right side, and I'm feeding that into the base of the current braid that I'm doing on the left side. Now this is a great visual for you to see why I stop the braid where I do. And I stop it right at the bottom of the curve of the previous braid from the opposite side, so that when I pull it over to the right to feed it back into the next braid, it stops perfectly at the place that I need to feed it in. Now, you should be able by this point to see how the pattern is coming together to create coverage for her thin area. Notice how her right perimeter is completely braided. We run out of room to add any additional braids. So right now, it's time to make the rest of the perimeter braid. And so after I make the next section from the front on the left-hand side, because remember, we're switching sides. After I make that curve around past her crown, it's time to go down behind her ear and over horizontally across her nape. I braid it this way because I like one flat flesh braid that circles the entire remainder of the perimeter, and it makes a small braid to crochet the hair onto, which makes it flatter in the back when the client wants to achieve a high ponytail or a high bun. I could just do the traditional way and do straight backs and combine all of the tails of those braids by sewing it together. But number one, I don't like to use thread. And number two, all of the tails of those braids combined in that one section at the bottom of the neck is gonna feel like a sushi roll or like a paper towel roll on the bottom of their neck. And I'm pretty sure that's not what your client is looking for. Don't forget that you have edges in the back too. They're not just in the front. Now the back ones is a little bit more grown up than the front ones. They're not baby hairs. They more like, you know, toddlers or adolescents, but they need love too. So make sure that you use a firmer hold for people who have shorter strands in the back. The reality of the fact is that they're gonna slip out anyway because people sweat, people's hair snags on their clothing. But being that she's in a professional setting and she's in a salon, I'm doing my best to make sure that it's as polished as possible when it's initially done. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on it, and I don't want to pull it too tight because she does have some short strands back there, and that could be from breakage, and I don't want to cause further tension or breakage. But I try to swoop as much as I can up into that bottom braid so that when she pulls her ponytail up, she can't see any of it. This is probably the most delicate part of her hair, so this is where I exercise extreme caution. Like, I mean, this braid has to be so delicate but firm. And my trick for getting a braid that is firm but doesn't hurt is to push while you braid, not pull. I see a lot of people who pull the hair toward them to get a firm grip on it when you really should be kind of pushing your fingers into the scalp so that you can pinch that section closer to the root instead of trying to pull the hair to you. I hope that kind of makes sense. I'm braiding with 3 pieces of hair in between my pinky, ring, and middle finger so that it makes it easier to grab it when I need to feed it into the braid. Now pay attention to this part. Don't forget, we're tucking the tail from the opposite side into the current braid as we go. That does not change even if there are no braids coming from the right side. We are still going to continue tucking those tails because they add width to the current braids, and they also cover sections of her scalp that I wouldn't be able to cover because she doesn't have enough density present to make a separate braid there. So now this is just a back view. Look at me with my little B-roll, okay? But now I'm braiding that perimeter braid, that circular braid that I talked about earlier, that has to come down behind the ear and horizontally across the nape. Usually this bottom braid, I like to braid as close to the bottom of that section as possible. But because, like we discussed earlier, she has some shorter pieces that are broken in the back, I had to center the braid for it to be firm and sturdy. Now that we have that circular perimeter braid done around the right side and the right ear, I'm now parting upward on the left side to go up around the left side of the left ear. Now I'm making another horizontal parting to make the second to the bottom braid. And this is going to go from ear to ear, also across the nape. Remember to tuck the tail all the time. So the tail of the braid that we just did that came from the right side of the perimeter is still hanging from the left side. And as you can see, I pull that up into the current braid and start to braid my way back along the back of the ear. Now sometimes, as you'll see, what happens is that one braid is kind of just rogue and it's kind of just cutting across the back of the ear, and it's not really flesh and it's not compact to the current braid that I'm doing. So what I'll do is I'll take one leg of my braid and stick it underneath of that tail braid that I just tucked in, and once I start braiding again, it pulls that tail braid closer to the braid that I'm using. And remember, this is why I like this method, because it makes the braids thicker. You see how it added a little bit of braid on the left side of this perimeter above her ear? This will allow me to make the crochet seam closer to the actual perimeter of her hair. Did y'all watch The Best Man final chapters yet? This is what we were watching. When she came in, she told me that it was out, and I totally had no idea. So we binge watched the first couple of episodes of it, and I really liked it. I thought it was refreshing to see all of our faves back on TV, looking good, looking like they ain't aged a lick. Now we're back at the top, and I am parting the final 2 sections of the braids for her foundation. They'll both be coming from the left side. Most of the braids will be coming from the left side because her part is on the right side. I'm curving that braid down and around back toward the center of her crown. And I am pulling the tail from the previous braid, and I am tucking that tail into the current braid. What I'm doing here is using pieces of colored thread to mark the bottom braid of her install. So this just makes it easier for my clients to identify the point where they should start taking out their foundation after they remove the crochet install. And no particular reason why I use orange. That's just the spool of thread that I had. And so I'm twisting it all the way down to the end to make sure that braid is completely finished. And then what I do next is just crochet that into a neighboring braid. We already moisturized and sealed her hair, but what I'm doing now is misting her scalp so that I can rehydrate the scalp and then sealing that with my house-made oil blend. I really like to take my time with this part because after the braid down, something about just that cool mist and then that cool oil dripping into the partings and the crevices of the scalp, it just feels so good and refreshing. And I also kind of do a little mini scalp massage to increase circulation and blood flow to the scalp. Now this is still a time-lapse video, so I tried to slow it down as much as possible, but in short, this is a process that I created that I call building bridges, where I use braid hair or yarn and use a crochet chain stitch in between 2 braids to create more layers where I can go in and add hair. So this is her finished foundation. That's her main part right there on the right side. And this is what the bridges look like. Drop a comment in the comment section if you would like to see a more in-depth video of how I do the bridges. I actually use this braid pattern no matter what their hair looks like. This is what it looks like on full, healthy hair. And again, I'm not a tight braider. Listen to my sis when she explains how her braids feel. How your scalp feel?
Good.
Your braids?
They're not too tight.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. No. So this is the rest of the time lapse. It just shows me installing her hair. And once the hair is installed, I'm using mousse to tame it. And now I'm shaping and cutting it into this bob. Look at this bob. Now I had to talk her into doing a tighter curl pattern and letting me go up and layer it into kind of an asymmetrical bob. And she let me do it. And we were both so glad that she let me do it. Y'all, this came out so cute. Look at the degree on that cut. Look at the bounciness, but most importantly, look at the coverage. You would never know that her crown was delicate. There's no way you would be able to tell. So off camera, I did a little bit more shaping in the front But overall, y'all, this is the shape. This is how the cut came out. She's happy. Look at the part. It's not big and bulky. It looks very natural, and I'm very pleased with the way that this came out, and so is she, and that's really all that matters. So what y'all think? Was this video helpful? Did you like the content? If so, you know what to do. Go hit that subscribe button and turn on your post notifications so you can know every time I post a video. Make sure you thumbs up this video and share it with a friend, and drop down into the comment section if you have any ideas on future content, because I will be looking. Thanks for stopping by.